Hey y'all, Moses here. Welcome back to my beginner guide series on Escape from Tarkov. First of all, I wanted to say thank you guys for all of the likes, the comments, the subscriptions. It makes a huge difference to the videos. My channel has noticed it, I've noticed it, and I just wanted to say thank you guys for the support. It means a lot to me. So in today's video, we're talking about the top 5 mistakes that new players make when they get into Escape from Tarkov. And this is from level 1 all the way up to like level 25. These are mistakes that I still make sometimes to this day. So I wanted to cover off these things, and hopefully by learning what not to do, you can have more success in your raids. So without further ado, let's jump into it. The first mistake, and probably the most common for new players, is just general hesitation. Hesitation to move, hesitation to fight. There's a lot of opportunities in this game to get hung up on your own mindset of what should I do? Do I wait? Do I move? Do I do this? Do I do that? And in that moment, you lose a fight, you miss out on a shot, whatever happens, happens. Hesitation comes from the anxiety that this game just forces upon you as a new player. Everything is so terrifying that you can't really bring yourself to make the first move in some cases. And that's something I completely understand. I have a history in shooter games, in games like PUBG, Battle Royales, like where quick decision making is a big factor. And yet in Tarkov, I found myself as a new player hesitating. And I think a lot of that comes with the fear of losing your gear or dying because of the permadeath. All these factors kind of make for a much more higher stakes engagement environment, and that can make you freeze up. So one thing that I like to work on as a new player and trying to breed that hesitation out is playing as a solo player. A lot of guys jump into this game, or a lot of girls, whoever, jump into the game and they don't, they play with their friends because, you know, there's strength in numbers, safety in numbers, whatever you want to say, but that can breed bad habits because when the time comes where you have to play by yourself or your duo partner dies or something like that, it can be a lot more stressful when you're making decisions on your own. So I would recommend going out and playing some solo games, as scary as they can be, because in a solo environment, everything you see that isn't you is a threat, and that will breed this. If I don't recognize it, shoot it. And that is kind of the overarching rule here in Tarkov. If you're not immediately sure what you're looking at, shoot it. If it's a scav, a player scav, it doesn't matter what you're doing, shoot that target, because the longer you wait or the more you hesitate, the higher chance that that person or scav or whatever is going to do damage to you or kill you. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different situations where you're going to have to wait, like if you don't have a clear shot, or you're waiting for a better shot to materialize, or you're stalking a team, or making sure that there's only one player, or whatever the situation is. But when it comes time, do not hesitate to pull the trigger on an enemy, because you don't want to lose a fight with the knowledge that you could have taken that person out relatively easily. So to tack onto that sentiment, there's a lot of times where you're going to maybe see a guy and you're going to wonder, did this person see me? Are they flanking or whatever? In that time that you're wondering, that's where you're going to die. So just be cautious, don't hesitate, and get into the mindset that if it's a threat or even a perceived threat, either reposition or attack. Don't hesitate. The next mistake I see a lot, and something that I'm still trying to train myself not to do, is sprint too often. This is something that just generates a ton of noise and is just a bad habit in general. So sprinting is about 30% louder than the fastest walk speed that you can have in game. So when you're sprinting around, you're making it's a signal flare. Come over here and murder me is essentially what sprinting can be, especially on close quarters maps like Interchange, Shoreline, really any map, especially outdoors. You're hitting bushes, you're sprinting, everyone can hear you. So take it down a notch, try and walk more often. And not to mention that when you're sprinting all the time, you're draining your stamina. So when you're making all that noise and you're drawing all that attention, eventually someone's going to come over and find you, and you're not going to have the stamina to escape. So make sure you're walking more often, even at the maximum speed. If you're trying to get somewhere fast, just power walk there, and that way you're not going to run into stamina issues if you get spotted, shot at, or whatever. So one other thing to tack onto that, if you're expecting to be moving near players, make sure you're using painkillers before you get into a fight. This is just a little tip that I picked up watching other people. If you're moving through Interchange, you're moving through Factory, pop that painkiller right away. So if you do get shot and someone hits you in the legs, you're not going to become a snail and get taken down immediately. So don't sprint as much. Be aware of how much noise you're generating while you're moving, the surfaces, etc., and making sure you have extra stamina in case something goes bad. So quit sprinting all the time. It's getting you killed, I promise. This next mistake is a small one, but a common one, and that is bringing the wrong gear into maps. If you're going into interchange to loot Oli, don't bring a sniper rifle. Mosins can be powerful, but if you're using your scope and you're trying to actually win interchange, you're not going to have nearly as much success, say, if you brought an SMG along or something along those lines. So just don't bring the wrong gear. And also, I guess the biggest one in this category is not bringing utility like grenades. Grenades are extremely useful. They can get players to move out of camped areas. You can get kills around corners. You can force players to do things that they likely wouldn't do otherwise. So don't forget your grenades. Don't forget your snacks. And don't bring the wrong guns into a map. Have a plan, know what you're there to do, and gear appropriately. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in future videos, but gearing appropriately does not necessarily mean like going all out on gear and spending a ton of money. I'm going to make a couple of videos about gearing for certain maps, so if you hit the subscribe button, you'll be able to find those as soon as they come out. Shameless plug, by the way. The next mistake that I still make to this day is predictable movement. Now, this is a big concept, but predictable movement is like if you trip over a player, you guys get into an engagement, he's in one room, you're in another, running straight into his room would be predictable because he's going to be holding that hallway, holding that entrance, waiting for you to move. So you got to use grenades, that kind of thing. But this more looks at like outdoor maps, like woods, shoreline, really any map, customs. Which is if you get into a fight and, you know, it's not really decided, you shoot at one guy, he shoots back. Don't just sit where you are. You're going to have to then decide which direction am I going to move to? Either you're going to retreat, you can move forward, you can flank. Don't sit still because that's predictable. You're putting out audio in an area that now anyone around you, including the person you're fighting, is going to be focused on. And if that player's smart, they're going to be flanking around to try and get to where you are. So you have to react accordingly. Don't sit still. Same thing with interchange or other indoor maps. If you're in a room and you shoot at a player, it doesn't work out, you miss. Don't run directly where that player is because they're going to be expecting you to come from the direction that they're now looking. Try and flank around, retreat, move. Don't be predictable in your movement. Even if you think you have the advantage, even a wounded player holding an angle can easily kill you in Escape from Tarkov. Don't assume just because you've done damage to that player that you can then follow up with an immediate, straight on push without getting punished. Try and be ginger with it. Throw a grenade, throw a flashbang, reposition, wait, listen for audio cues. Don't be predictable. That's how I die the most, is when I assume that someone is still where they're at or where I saw them last, rather, or if they're wounded enough for me to finish them off easily. It's play it by ear. You're not going to be able to, assume that everyone's going to kill you every single time. Sometimes pushing is the only option, but you need to be immediate with your decision making, and that's something that you have to work on. So when it comes to this game as a new player, if things aren't going well or it didn't exactly go as you had planned, reposition, reassess, and then see if you can re-engage at a later time, because forcing the issue is going to lead to you dying a lot more than you absolutely need to. So just keep that in mind. Flanking is something of a concept that I'll probably work on an independent video similar to the last topic. But don't just sit still and wait for something to happen to you. This game has peeker's advantage. Stay on the move. Be aggressive. Don't die standing still waiting for information to come to you. Get out there, move around, force yourself to move, and get used to flanking, because that's just how you're going to win fights. So keep that in mind as you're playing your rounds. It's something you do have to practice, just like everything else. The number one biggest mistake I see players make, and something I had to teach myself, is learning player spawns in a map. There are multiple player spawns in any given map, and knowing all of them will give you a tremendous advantage, especially in early game situations where you could pop over a ridgeline and get an easy kill early. I've been the victim of not knowing player spawns more often than not in a new player situation. When I was learning the game, I was unaware of where players would spawn, so I would just run off in a direction and I would trip over players and die all the time, especially on a map like Woods. Just every time you spawn into a map, either as a scav or as a player, note your spawn location and remember it. Just try and retain this information as you play the game, because once you start to recognize player spawns, you'll spawn in a spot and you'll know, okay, there's within three directions, there are a couple of options where players could spawn. So I'm going to either play to those directions to see if I can get an early kill, or at least be cautious when moving in that direction, depending on where you are in the map. Don't allow other player spawns to go unnoticed, because that's just an easy way to die. So don't forget that stuff. And as a cap on this point, retain all information. Player flow and player spawns are very closely correlated in this game. If you hear a player shooting on the other side of the map, you know that that guy is going to be, either coming one direction, say on woods, they'll come from the top of the map to get to the other extract, or extract at the paracord spot there. So just be aware of all the audio going around you, and know that if a player's shooting across the map, they're going to be coming your direction eventually to extract. So just keep little mental notes of everything. This game is all about retaining information. Knowledge is power, as Pestily says. So in this case, keeping it narrow to this one specific mistake. Take note of player spawns, memorize them, know them, and check them before moving through a map, and you'll die a lot less in the early game. Thanks for taking the time to watch today's video, guys. I really do appreciate it. And I wanted to say I do stream every single day at facebook.com/WTFMoses and on Twitch at twitch.tv/WTFMoses. If you want more content like this in the future, and for more random sleeping cats, don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well. You can also follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/WTFMoses. You know all the links. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you out there.